Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to attempt to explain the higher self. So you may have heard the term the higher self. What does it mean? So the higher self, the best way I can describe this, is not always the easiest way to understand, but I will try my best. The higher self is the aspect of us that operates outside of the space-time continuum. So straight away you're probably thinking, stop this video, bye-bye. So stick with me because it is a really interesting subject if you're interested in this type of thing. The self that exists, say for example as me now, Jenny, this body is a tool that operates in the earthly realm. When you have a lifetime, you have a body because you need a body to operate in the third dimensional realm, moving into fifth dimension, but that's a subject for another video. You need, because in this 3D earthly realm, the vibration of this dimension vibrates much lower. So because it's a lower, slower vibration, you need a body for it. Okay? Stick with me. So I identify in this lifetime as Jenny. This is my body. This is where I live. This is my age. This is where I work. I have pets. I have this. I have that, for example. That is the aspect of me that I identify with when I'm in the lifetime. The higher self doesn't identify with any of those lifetimes because the higher self only knows itself as the true self. And that's us. That's not separate to us. So where does the higher self is the aspect of us that goes through all of the lifetimes that the soul incarnates as. So in this lifetime, I'm Jenny, but in another lifetime, I was a Red Indian, for example. You know, in another lifetime, I was a washerwoman. In another lifetime, I was a billionaire. You know, in another lifetime, I was something else. Okay. The soul incarnates into different experiences, makes up a character, and then the character in the play, Jenny, totally identifies with itself as this is all that I am. This, what I see in the mirror, that's me. That's not really who I am. I'm multi-dimensional, so are you. So the part that you see in the mirror, the part that you perceive with your five senses, is a small part of you. It's not the only part of you. It's a very significant part of you because it's the part of you that experiences the lifetimes, but it's not truly who you are. The higher self is who you are really. That's the true self, the whole complete version of you. So the higher self is something that is naturally created from and that transcends each lifetime. So every time your soul has a lifetime, it learns something in that lifetime. It gains some snippets of information, of wisdom, of experience from that lifetime. And all of that information from that lifetime is being fed to the higher self. So the higher self is always existing. The linear mind can't perceive that very well. So stick with me because I get that it's a complicated thing to try and perceive. The linear ego mind can only think of lifetimes as past, present and future. The linear ego might not even believe in past lives, and that's fine because that's, you know, I'm not trying to influence anyone's belief systems here, but however, that's something that completely resonates with me. I've said this in past videos. The higher self is the aspect of us that ascends and transcends all of these earthly realities and knows that it's illusion. It doesn't seem like it. It seems very, very real to us, but in truth, it is illusion. And I know that's a lot to wrap your head around. And because it's illusion, we can change it and we can change how it looks. So it looks very solid, but we know, and science will tell you, that even the solid objects, if you look at it under a microscope and you zoom in, you will just see energy at the bottom of it. It's not solid like we think it is. So those forms can always change. The higher self is the aspect of us that has gone through all of these lifetimes and passed all the tests And this is the highest version that we can become. So when I ask my cards, tell me what the higher self is. Just tell me in a card, what is the higher self, okay? And the first card, which was very interesting that I got, was the golden ratio, the Fibonacci sequence. So what is the Fibonacci sequence? It's the spiral that we see in nature. We see it in an embryo. An embryo starts off like a little, circle, and then it comes out into this, it unravels into this potential of this human being. But it starts off like this. You see it in ferns when they just grow in their little spirals, in they're like little blobs, and then they turn into this big potential, this huge fern. Same with flowers. It's the same with shells. When we see seashells, like little spirals, the ear, a snail's house on its back. You see that everywhere in nature. The higher self and this is it's no different. So if you think of the Fibonacci sequence, the spiral, there is where we start, and then the highest potential of the higher self is the biggest part of the spiral. It's the highest part of the spiral, but it's already here. It's already existing as the potential of who we can become, because the higher self works outside of the space-time reality. It's already existing as the lifetimes are happening. And every time we have a lifetime, we're adding to that. We're always adding to that. The higher self is also termed the higher self. There's lots of other things it could be termed, by the way. It could be termed as it could be termed as like a higher spirit guide, or it could be some people term, there's lots of different things it can be termed as. It's not just the higher self. And the divine self, the creator self, whatever you want to call it. So the reason it's termed the higher self is because it also has a higher perspective. When we are in these earthly lifetimes, all we can see is a limited perspective. So all we see is everything is separate to us. We're the victim of things. That person is different to me. We're judging people. We're judging ourselves. We see everything as separate. We don't see it as whole. We don't see the higher perspective. The higher self does. If you're lost in the woods, right, and you can't find your way out, your higher self can see the way out, and it's always trying to guide you. But the thing is, because we're so identified with the mind, all we listen to is the chatterbox mind of the ego that just keeps us going round in circles all the time, that makes us worry more, that's trying to be overprotective, that is irrational, that's judgmental, that is always trying to interpret what's going on in the wrong way. Sometimes it does help us, but other times it doesn't. The higher self sees everything exactly as it is from a higher perspective. You're lost in the woods. The higher self sees the woods and everything else around it, and more and more and more. So the higher self will be sending information into you all the time, saying, go this way, go this way, go this way. But when we're running around the woods in a panic, we can't see the way out because we can't hear or perceive or sense the higher self. The higher self doesn't talk to us the same way as the ego monkey mind does. The ego monkey mind just chatters about things all the time that doesn't really get us anywhere. Have you not noticed? Have you noticed that when you're sitting quietly just gazing out of the window and your mind's gone a bit quiet, suddenly you might go, oh, I've just had a really good idea about something. Oh, I might do this. Oh, I feel like I want to do that. The higher self is always sending you little breadcrumbs of things that can take you on the right path, that can send you in the right direction, that can make you feel better all the time. But sometimes we don't always receive those messages because we're so distracted by the physical world that we're not hearing it. But the higher self's very patient because, like I said, it's transcended all of that. It's tolerant as anything. It's tolerant, it's loving, it's kind, it's caring. The higher self thinks we're the best thing since sliced bread. Even though we're really struggling, it loves us and it wants us to do well because it is us. There's no separation really. So the higher self will always be trying to give you information. Sometimes it really does need to give us a wake-up call because we're not listening, or we're going through our lifetime doing maybe with unhealthy habits or things like that. And like I said, it doesn't judge us for it, but it will always try and push us in the right direction. So the higher self, for example, will, if we're not listening, it might send us little niggles through the body, because as soon as something goes wrong with the body, we pay attention to it. So instead of saying, oh my God, I've got this pain in my body and it's horrible, and you try and distract from it, or you try and numb it with certain things, we're not listening to what that message, because it's only ever a message. When it comes through the body, it's a message trying to say something to us. But we take painkillers and things like that. We try and manage the pain. We don't sit with the pain and say, this is my higher self speaking to me. It's not trying to cause me pain, but it is trying to get my attention. And as soon as we focus on that and say, what is this? What information is my body, my higher self trying to communicate to me that I haven't been listening to before? What is it trying to say to me? And you will get the answer. And as soon as you focus on it, instead of running away from it and getting stressed about it, because I know it's easy done, and I know it's not easy to do that sometimes, that's when it will start dispersing and going away and changing and transcending and transmuting. You know, the higher self will talk to us not through language, not through words, because the words is limited. Sometimes we can ask the higher self for a message and it might come through our own voice. There's many ways it can come through. The higher self speaks to us through cards. You know, the higher self will find everything in this reality it possibly can, signs, symbols, everything, synchronicities, to give you information. But it's subtle and it's not as loud and as chatterbox as the monkey linear mind is. So try not to identify as much with the linear monkey mind. We do need that sometimes to work things out. Yes, we do. Of course we do. But sometimes it takes us off on a tangent. And before we know it, we've got ourselves into a knot. We've got ourselves wound up and we've overcomplicated things. And you know when the higher self is speaking to you, because the answer is always simple. It's always loving. It feels expansive and it feels good. That's when you know you're getting information from your higher self. It's an inspired idea that feels exciting. That's your higher self. It's something that is suggested to you that you hadn't considered before, just using the logical mind. That's your higher self. Something that just makes sense and resonates. That's your higher self. So tune into that. The other cards that I got was healing, medical staff, healing. Your higher self is your own medical person. It knows if you've got something wrong with you physically, health-wise, it knows exactly what's wrong with you. It knows exactly what's underlying it. But we tend to search outside of ourselves. And yes, sometimes, you know, it does help to do that. I'm not saying. But tune in as well. Ask the higher self, why am I suffering with this problem? Is this something it's rooted in? Is there something underlying it? Is there an undercurrent that I'm really missing? Is there something I can do or let go of that will really help me in this situation? The other card that came up was the body, the body's power. The higher self will speak to us through the body. And you can use that by getting quiet, taking a few deep breaths, and asking the higher self, when you're nice and still, asking the higher self to show you a signal for yes. And you will feel something subtle in the body that will give you a signal for yes. You can also do it for show me a signal for no, and you'll get a different signal for no. That's how the higher self speaks to you. The higher self is the version of us that has transcended this dualistic reality, that knows the answers that can help us and wants us to tune into it and wants us to remember that that's who we really are. And remember, it operates outside the space-time continuum, so it sees more and it has more vision and it understands why everything is the way that it is. So tune into that. So I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you next time. Bye.